Do Idaho 4, Bryan Kohberger. All right. So like I said, I've been down the rabbit hole. When I was at the driving range the last 2 or 3 times, I listened to the full Megyn Kelly series. She did like a full series on it. And then I listened to the Serialistly, I think is what it's called, podcast, some other stuff. The case itself is kind of taken on a life of its own online. There's a lot of debating and coverage, and people have been like, he's guilty, and other people are like, he's not guilty, and like all this stuff. It sounds like Charles has been following the case. Brad, have you?
No,
not at all. All right. Well, I'll give you like, you want me to give you the brief cliff notes?
You guys, yeah. I mean, I can't be the only person. There's 3 of us, but there's millions of listeners. There's certainly a chunk of them that haven't heard.
Well,
all right, there's a lot. Okay. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I was going to kind of set the stage for those who weren't. So 3 years ago, 2022. Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, 4 people. Ethan did not live in the home, but the 3 girls did with 2 of their roommates. They were home around, 2, 3 in the morning, whatever. Someone came in, murdered them, and left. 2 of the roommates, or maybe 3, I'm not sure, were in the house and heard commotion. One of them actually saw Bryan walk by her while she opened the door to her room, and they were not harmed. He left, well, allegedly Bryan. He left. They waited hours before calling the police. They then called the police. Police showed up, found the 4 of them murdered. It's just been so strange. So, I mean, I remember seeing that morning, and it was just like, what? And then the cops were like, there's no concern. I mean, granted, I'm not in Idaho, so I wasn't like concerned that, it was going to happen to me. But they kept telling people there's no concern. Don't worry about it. Like, we're not concerned about who this person is and them coming back, essentially. And then a couple days later, they pop out with Bryan Kohberger and said that he was the guy. And I have yet to hear a motive. I don't know if they talked about that on the stuff you listen to, but that's what I'm dumbfounded by, is because there are no connections that they've been able to identify between him and these group of people, and therefore have not been able to provide a motive. And I'm just so confused.
So I mean, I remember when these happened, some were talking about it on the radio and, all that stuff and hearing about it. So the thrust of this is this guy, Bryan Kohberger, or whatever his name is, may not have been the guy.
So let me add just a little additional color. Charles's layout was good. The murders happened at 4 a.m. The 4 people were stabbed to death. 2 of the roommates survived. 1 came out of her room to see what was happening, and the suspect walked right by her, like literally within feet, straight out the door, like in a daze. She had mentioned at that point, which ended up being a important tip for the law enforcement, that the guy had a mask on, but he had bushy eyebrows. They waited. This is one of the things that the defense is going to bring up. They waited 8 hours to call the police. They ordered food. They called their parents.
They ordered
friends.
Food. Okay.
Yeah. They ordered. That's why she was up at 4 a.m, because she had ordered food and thinking it was the delivery guy.
Okay.
And then the first clue that the police get is they pull video footage from the surrounding areas, and they see this white Hyundai Elantra driving near the house 3 times around the times of the murder. The second clue is they find a knife sheath in the house, which has some DNA on it, but nobody in their database has that DNA. And the distinction is it's touch DNA. It's not like saliva or blood or semen. It's from a finger tip. And then, in December, a month later, actually, Bryan Kohberger is being monitored by the police in Pennsylvania at his parents' home. They drove across the country, and they surveil him, taking stuff out of his car, putting it in little plastic bags while he's wearing gloves, and throwing it in his neighbor's trash. At which point, the police arrest him, bring him back. He's the guy. They match the touch DNA on the knife sheath to Kohberger's dad, or a relative of Kohberger's dad. And so he's the suspect. The trial, there's a lot going on. The trial starts in July with jury selection. Everybody's following it. And given those facts, this is where I'm at on it. Given those facts, it really seems like he's the guy. But I would say that the prosecution's case is pretty light of facts, including what Charles just laid out, is they have no motive. There's no motive. He doesn't know these girls. They don't know why he killed him. The touch DNA can be questioned because that's not technically allowed to be used in court. And the white Hyundai Elantra, like, yeah, I was pinging off cell phone towers, but those things, radiuses are super big and all this kind of, stuff that they can dispute and try to raise a reasonable doubt among the jury. But so anyways, there's a lot going on. The trial starts in July. Are you guys going to watch it? It's a state court, so it'll be on TV. Do you plan to watch any of it?
Probably not like day to day, like some of the others, but I'm certain I'll be like watching it regularly.
Yeah.
Because I want to know what the prosecution, like, they've got to give a motive to the jury. And I mean, maybe they don't, like, maybe there is no motive, but still, like, it's not even, they have video footage of two of the girls at a food truck earlier in the evening. And it's not even like he's like hovering around the food truck and followed them home. Like, there's just nothing. And so it seems as though he literally pulled up to this house, somehow knew it was, kind of like a sorority girl house that he could gain access to without people questioning why you're coming in and out of a house at 4 a.m. and randomly killed 4 people and then didn't kill the others, which one of them looked him directly in the face. I don't understand it.
He looks like Richard Hanania, 1. 2, why did they wait 8 hours before calling the police? They didn't realize they're dead?
No, they went in there, but they didn't go in there until, if I'm not mistaken, one of the girls said that they were just scared. They closed the door and they locked themselves in, and then they did go into the rooms later and they recognized that there was a problem, and then they called the police. I think one might have called her sister, another called their parent. But at the end of the day, like, that to me isn't, 8 hours is a long time, but you just don't know how you react in a situation like that. And they're like 21 years old. They've never seen anything like that. Like, I can see you being frozen for 8 hours, being like, I don't know.
You cannot see me frozen for 8 hours if I see a dead body in my house.
Well, I don't think they saw a dead body. I think that they assumed, because if you listen to the 911 call, they are saying she's not waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they assumed maybe she was dead from alcohol poisoning or something like that in her room. The door was closed. She was in there with her boyfriend. They didn't go in the room. It was the frat guy that they called over to come over that went in the room the first time and with the police and saw that the bodies were there. And so the 8 hours, these girls are like texting with each other, the 2 survivors, like, what's going on? Did one of the girls bring a guy home? Who was that guy that just walked through the house, kind of thing? And so it's such a bizarre set of facts, including the lack of motive. And the defense is going to try to throw out the DNA. They're going to say, well, white Hyundai Elantra, how many of those are there? There's no license plate. There's no picture of him driving the car. And the thrown away trash, he always acts like that. He's a little bit ADD and like doesn't like germs. So like
OCD,
yeah, doesn't like germs. So how does that mean he's a murderer? And I think the prosecution has a tough case to prove, even though it seems pretty clear to me that this guy was responsible. The other fact is that he was a master's student at another university, and he's studying to be a criminologist. Interesting.
I did. Yes, I forgot that part.
Brad, have we piqued your interest?
Yeah, I feel like I know all about it now. Like, I don't need to go listen to a podcast about it. So that's nice. I'm glad that I have this little. He really looks a lot like Richard Hanania, and I'm trying to like find a way to.
He looks creepy. He looks creepy as F.
What are you going to do? It's hard to believe that someone would freeze for 8 hours, but maybe they just didn't know. Maybe they thought it was dead for something else, or who knows? I don't know.
They didn't know they were dead when they froze for 8 hours. They had the run-in with the guy, were afraid, and went back in their room. And I think at the end of the day, you just don't know how someone's going to react in a situation. Like, you just really don't, especially when you're a 21-year-old girl who's never been through anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
they're posting on TikTok and Instagram and stuff in the interim period. So like maybe they just thought she brought some dude home, and then the dude was leaving, and then they started to get worried. You know, they're waking up from their hangover. They start to get worried because nobody's coming out of the room, and then they start to freak out. But all right, let's move on. We will cover it. I will be interested to cover, you know, what happens in the trial, as a lot of people will be doing. So we'll